picture was taken 20 years ago, I still look the same. Great to see you all, and thank you for joining us. We have the small task today of creating the future. Hopefully today we'll take those words and conversations and really bring it to action. I'm here today, as I said, the founder and chief executive of the Fourth Group. We were established in summer of 2016 to really understand all of these technological changes and this fourth industrial revolution and figure out how we can shape it for the good of humanity, leaving nobody behind. In particular, over the last few months, we've been really toying around and experimenting through a laboratory of creating what we call political entrepreneurs. So what's the context? This, I'm sure many of you have seen, is Sophia, a robot who I've actually met before. Really interesting. She can talk to you. She can look in your eyes. Very attractive. I thought it was actually someone else across the room. And in a way, she really symbolizes a lot of what's happening now. The ideas of whether we will lead to a dystopian world or utopian world. In many ways, the fourth industrial revolution is shaping the way we live, work, and play, and it's also transforming economies and societies. One of the big questions is that actually Sophia was granted citizenship by the Saudi Arabian government, and one of the big questions was, why is it that there were a lot of refugees who wanted access to services and couldn't access what citizens would get, and yet we have a robot who is given citizenship? There are a lot of big questions that have arisen. I think this is symbolic of it. And there's also kind of a joke which goes around. So, the future we'll see factories, as we've done before, but in this time we'll see robots, a dog, and a human. Now, the job of the dog is to guard the robots, and the job of the human is to feed the dog. It's this idea that we will become, in a way, defunct as a species, but at the same time, as has been said in previous talks, it may be an opportunity for us to really realize what it means to be human. So the fourth industrial revolution, first we started off with steam, then we went to mechanization and automation, then we had computers, and now we have the Internet of Things and big data and so forth. But the question is, what can be done about it? So politics can be defined in many ways. In this case, I'll be defining it as the means of utilizing power to make decisions to address societal problems. Many of you in the room are entrepreneurs, so I'm sure you'll have very real-life experience of what it means to be an entrepreneur. But for this case, we'll talk about entrepreneurs as someone who sees an opportunity to create something new and valuable and is willing to take a risk. And so the definition of a political entrepreneur is someone who creates new ideas and innovations and acts as a new leader in the field of politics. And there are many ways in which you can have impact in this space. And there are three fields of disruption which are currently happening today. We've got ideas, we also have technology and campaigns. So in the past, we had, the idea of conservatism as an idea. And then we had Fabianism as an idea. Now we have ideas of something as complex as fully automated luxury communism as an idea. And as the Fourth Group, we develop a new vision of what a new institution should look like. So in the same way, after World Wars, we had the creation of the United Nations and so forth. Is there really a need for a new type of institution outside of Parliament, outside of the things which we have seen have existed and evolved over the last few decades and centuries? Is there a need for a new type of institution? Question mark. Technology. Now, we know who is the disruptor extraordinaire in this case, Mr. Trump. Donald Trump has, of course, used Twitter to, in a way, disrupt the way people communicate and figureheads communicate with people. It's really interesting just to see how within our community we hold hackathons where we actually get political experts and technologists to create really cool stuff. So the last hackathon we did was actually to automate politicians. It was really interesting because we broke down the tasks that politicians do, from meeting people to writing legislation to representing constituents. And one person had created a chatbot which automated the politician so that you didn't actually need to meet the MP, you could just chat to them as a robot and be able to point to different services and a way of voting in that space. And finally, campaigns. So we actually have a number of really interesting political leaders now who are using technology. So Modi in India had used a hologram to speak in front of tens of thousands of people in the same way many of our speakers are now doing, but literally not being there and actually being transported by holograms. So there's a lot of innovation that are happening and a lot of ways that politics and entrepreneurship have come together. But why does this matter? So, I was a student of history and have seen and learned about many figureheads in the past, three of whom I'm sure you will know on the screen. Emily Pankhurst, the person who helped campaign and in fact led a movement to win votes for women. And of course, we celebrated 100 years of women getting the vote this year. And as an example, somebody who, from outside of formal politics, created a campaign, was angry, saw something she wanted to protest against, built a movement around her, and won political change in Parliament. We also have William Wilberforce, the independent MP who was elected when he was 21. And he started a movement within Parliament to abolish slavery. In this case, it wasn't someone from outside, it was someone from inside who was working with partners in order to address a really big issue and problem and actually help win it. And finally, we have Filippo, who was the leader of the Futurist movement, a movement which said the answer is not about in traditions, which I'm sure Weatherbys would very much disagree with. It is about disruption, getting rid of all the new museums, getting rid of all art galleries. It's about the future, industry, and technology. So here are a few examples. But when we look at what happened, going from landscapes which were completely transformed in a sense by factories, again, we had new problems, right? Children were working in factories. Workers had to work in really extreme circumstances. And now in the fourth industrial revolution, as I say, there are big, big challenges that come up. I think a lot of the debate right now will look at all of these things. Hands up if you are aware of a lot of these issues that are on the screen. Okay, great. Wonderful. So we're talking about fake news, inequality of digital capital, privacy and misuse of personal data, social media echo chambers, ethics of AI, cybersecurity, internet neutrality, automation's impact on the labor market. These are huge challenges which we're trying to address today. So the question mark is, who are the political entrepreneurs who are going to step up and take a hit at trying to address some of these problems? And who are the people who are really going to be, in a way, learning from the leaders of the past to address these issues? And that's a big part of our mission. So here are some examples of people who have really made a difference in this space. We've got Nat Wally on the top right, and she is a woman who's created a platform which allows employers to work with employees on a digital interface so that you know what problems they face, as well as the employees being able to speak up when they actually have problems. A new digital way of employee-employer relationships. We also have a guy on the bottom right who was part of the gig economy. He was a delivery worker, and he campaigned with a bunch of people to fight for a living wage, to allow him to live a decent life and work a job that he wanted to work. And finally, we have some examples of our community, the fourth group. As I said, we are a global community. We have communities all around the world, and I actually set it up because there were a lot of things that I was angry about in my personal life. So just to kind of let you know as to why I took my route in terms of political entrepreneurship. So I was born and raised in East London. Do you know where Plaistow is? Okay, good. Not many people know. Usually they say they think I'm from Glasgow, but clearly I don't have a Scottish accent. So I'm from Plaistow, born and raised there. My mum came from the Philippines, actually, when she was 19 to work as a chambermaid cleaning hotels in the Lake District. And then my father came later after he married in the Philippines and worked as a waiter in central London. He actually passed away when I was 9 years old. And for me, growing up in a single-parent family in one of the poorest parts of the country, I was angry a lot. There was many routes I could go. A lot of my friends were involved in crime, drugs, and all of that kind of stuff. And actually, education for me was the answer. So I became the first to graduate from university in my family. Thanks to my mum, who's the hero in this. She's probably the political entrepreneur extraordinaire. But the point was, I was a lucky case. And so since then, I've spent the last 10 years working with people like many of the speakers who have been speaking today to address some big, deep, intractable problems like poverty and criminal justice. But for me, my thesis now is actually with this new industrial revolution, this is really the time to shape it, to really create the future that we want to create. Because in the past, we've seen previous industrial revolutions being shaped by world leaders, chief execs, who aren't engaging with ordinary folk and ordinary people who also have a voice, but most importantly are going to be impacted in ways which are unimaginable to people who are making the decisions at top. So that's the message I want to share with you and also communicate to you, and hopefully we can have a real good conversation about that. So finally, please feel free to take photos. These are the 4 pillars that you need to create great political entrepreneurs. These are things that we've learned over the last few months in terms of what makes a good entrepreneur in politics. You need leadership. You need a great vision, an amazing team behind you, and courage. People who can really seize the day, rally the troops and offer value, have a team of people who champion you, our community, are funding you with good intentions and our allies. And finally, I think this is one of the key parts of all entrepreneurial endeavors, really having the courage to step up, take a risk, and hopefully do something good. It's been bloody tough over the last 8 months, but it's been also amazing to try and bring a vision to how we can shape the world. To end, I want to leave you with a quote from Priscilla, who is a pediatrician and philanthropist, but also is known as Mark Zuckerberg's wife. We, the current generation, have a moral responsibility to make the world better for future generations. And I think what I really found powerful about just this one line is the fact that you have someone who's at the top of, in a way, the tech world, who's really trying to use her mission and her vision and her power to make a difference to people and future generations and young people and so forth. So thank you so much. Hopefully we can take this conversation and actually create a future where we bring people forward, again, leaving no one behind. Thank you so much.